Hello, I'm going to be talking about all these mask mandates going around. I just thought I'd warn you ahead of time. If you're bored of the subject, well, nothing I can do about that. Because you see, there's plenty of literally barefaced cheek going on in the States, in Britain, and in Australia. Can't speak for the rest of the world, but it's certainly going on in the Anglosphere. From the new House of Commons rule that all staff in the Palace of Westminster have to wear masks, the staff, while their betters, the MPs, can go maskless. After all, the lower classes are nasty and infectious, aren't they? Now, it just made me think of a theatre on the Isle of Man. As you know, I have family connections with that island, and one of the best of creations by a 19th century theatre architect called Frank Matcham is the Gaiety Theatre in Douglas, the commercial centre of the Isle of Man. If you've seen one Matcham theatre, you'll recognise another straight away. I've been in, many theatres in London, and I know a Matcham theatre after having been guided round the Gaiety and noticed the particular Matcham characteristics. Anyway, over the years, all of these Matcham theatres have been subject to various renewals, renovations, modernisations, and some of them are really just a shadow of their former glorious selves, except for the bare architectural bones of it. But on the Isle of Man, not much was done to the Gaiety Theatre since it was built. Then, in the 1980s, when it was nearly 100 years old and the situation had got quite dire and the theatre was in a state of serious deterioration, there was really no choice about it. They had to completely refurbish it or knock it down or something. But good counsel prevailed, and they made the admirable decision to restore it to its Victorian splendour. They even reproduced the old wallpaper, which had a sort of green pattern on it, which was arsenic based, and they had to find a substitute to get that same colour. And so it's not arsenic based anymore, but they went back to that sort of trouble. And they kept all the features that made the Gaiety Theatre one of the very best examples of its type. Because when it was built on the Isle of Man at a time when it was at a peak of holiday entertainments. That was the place to go. A lot of people thought of it as a foreign country, and they felt like they'd been abroad when they'd been there because they had to sail across from Liverpool or wherever. Anyway, one of the most striking features about it was that the stalls are divided into two sections. The first few rows, I can't remember how many, it's about 5 or 6, I suppose, they're divided off by a wooden partition behind them. The last row has this partition. It's about this high, just a bit higher than the seats. And the ones in front of that partition were the most expensive seats. Well, apart from the boxes, of course. I took a tour around the theatre, as I said, some years ago, while on a visit to family, and the guide explained that this partition was there because much of the audience was probably very smelly, and this ensured that the sweeter smelling upper classes had an evening's entertainment free of the hum of the hoi polloi. I didn't argue with him at the time, but, well, look, I've shifted enough horse manure to be able to identify horse shit when I see it. And that was the biggest heap of horse shit it was possible to shovel in the direction of a set of gullible tourists. Middle-class Victorians, who were the only ones who could afford the stalls wherever they were, the impoverished who might well have been less savoury, would have settled for the back at the top of the circle. The middle-class stall seat occupants would not have smelt any worse than the upper crust in the front. In any case, the barrier, look, it's only, marginally higher than the seat backs. As I said, it's purely symbolic. Otherwise, the people behind the barrier wouldn't be able to see the stage. That's not going to stop smells wafting over to the people in front. No, the reason for the barrier was to divide off the people to whom you must doff your cap from the people who are the cap doffers. Well, we don't wear caps anymore nowadays, so they've come up with something else. Now it's masks that mark you out as one of the servants rather than the masters. And while our governors, politicians, prime ministers and presidents attend functions maskless, they're starting to make sure that their underlings mark out their inferiority by keeping their nasty germs to themselves. Well, as I said, that's nothing more than bare-faced cheek. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.